a tough story and was a wake up call.
Yeah.
I got this email from
Yeah.
Celeste. Actually, that's not her real name. And off the top of my head, I don't even recall her real name.
Yeah,
And
because
this
she
is
hasn't
many.
contacted you back, right?
Pardon me?
She hasn't gotten back in touch
No,
with you.
never has. This person never has. But I get this email, and it came in at 2 a.m. I wasn't awake, but I saw it the next morning, and it was just a story of desperation. It was an entrepreneur who had read some of my books,
Mhm.
but at that moment was working at her daycare center. She owned a daycare center,
Yeah.
and she was cleaning the daycare center at 2 o'clock in the morning to prepare for the next day
Yeah.
with double pneumonia. And she said she's just been crying that she cannot go on in her business anymore, that she is physically, mentally exhausted. And she said something to the fact like she can't even cry anymore. She's cried so much. And she said, I remember these words, not verbatim, but it hit home. She said, it really hit home. She said, I think the best resolution is for the situation is for me no longer to exist. Effectively, I thought like a suicide, and she very quickly says, I'm not contemplating suicide. She goes, that would be foolish. But she goes, I cannot find another solution. I'm desperate.
Yeah.
And I emailed her back immediately. And just said, I'm here to direct you, help you in any way I can. Please reach out. And I never heard from her again. That story has become an impetus for me to write Clockwork. It fuels me in what I do because I think a lot of entrepreneurs have bought into this concept of hustle and grind.
Mhm.
And that terminology is really damaging. I understand the sentiment behind it. Like when you run a business, when you start it, you got to do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
At times you'll have to work extraordinary hours. But if we think that's the long-term solution, it's not.
Yeah.
Like I just did a keynote in Rochester, Minnesota, just 2 days ago.
Mhm.
And it was groups that owned studios, dance studios.
Yeah.
And one thing, as we're talking, or as I was sharing this, one person says, but you need to grind it out. And my response was, if you've been grinding it out to scale your business for like a year or two, you've proven that grinding doesn't work.
Yeah.
The grind has to happen in short spurts. But
Yeah.
if that's your modus operandi, your business is trapped.
Yeah.
So Clockwork is about designing a business to run itself,
Yeah.
to not be dependent on the owner, not to grind and hustle. In fact, do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Remove yourself from the business in its entirety.
Yeah. No, that's huge. One thing that struck me right in the beginning, story about Celeste, obviously, that's moving. That's a big enough why for you, I'm sure, to Clockwork everywhere. I think though, we may not all get to that level, but we all at some point in small business get to a point where we throw our hands up. I'm just going to sell it. I'm going to be done with it. Throw our hands up, say whatever. We all get to that point. But it is because we get into this hustle and productivity. And I want you to talk about that. You said we have like a false notion of productivity. We can get in this rat wheel.
Yeah.
And speak to that on those points.
I met with a productivity expert. The guy's name is Chris Winfield, who subsequently has left the industry. That's what he used to teach. And I remember meeting with him because when I write a book, I come up with a thesis and a hypothesis of what will drive the result I'm looking to achieve, make a business run on its own. And then I researched out, and then I try to find ways to challenge it. Well, the first stage was, is productivity the solution for an efficient business? And I'm like, that sounds so obvious. Yes. Yeah. So the first productivity expert I meet with, he looks me square in the eyes and says, productivity is crap. He goes, it's not the solution. I'm like, hold on, you're a productivity expert. He goes, like, I know, and I'm now convinced it's not the solution. Here's what happens. When we have a work day that has 8 hours of stuff we need to do, or 10, or whatever the number is, the only way to get more work in is to become more productive. So we get productivity tools, we use shortcuts, and so forth. And what we do is we pack down, all that work gets packed down from, we'll say 8 hours to 6 hours, availing 2 extra hours to work. So what do? We take on 2 hours more of work. Now you're back up to 8 hours. Yep. So we have to become more productive. We compact it down. And what we do is we become impacted with work. It puts us at risk too, because if there's one mix up in the day, one problem throws the entire day or week or a month off because there's so much demand on us.
Yeah.
So productivity is necessary. A productivity tools like the wheel. Maybe it used to be a square. And the day, to say, oh, you know what, we're not going to use wheels that are round anymore. Let's go back to squares. Like that would be a fool's folly. So productivity is a necessary aspect, but it's not the solution to an efficient business. An efficient business, I found, leverages productivity tools on its base, but what it does is it choreographs all the resources to complement each other.
Yep.
And I think that's the objective of an entrepreneur.
Yep.
What is the outcome we want to have? How do we choreograph all of our resources around us to achieve that outcome and keep it moving forward?
Yeah, so true. Yeah, because productivity, work ethic, hustle is not the problem for most entrepreneurs.
No, it's not.
At the beginning, you said, direct quote, "You are not the problem, your systems are." And then around the topic of productivity, you said it leaves more on your plate. You can outsource the work, but you can't outsource the decisions. And I thought that kind of all summed it up with a bow on it. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I call that the deciding trap. And I think it's 97% of businesses in the world have 3 employees or less. And I'm convinced a major factor, reason behind that is that the business owner is making all the decisions for the business. So I have 3 employees, or whatever. I give them task rabbiting, say, go do this, go do that. And they come back and say, I have a question. What should I do here? And I say, oh, do this, do that. And so what I do is I simply am giving tasks, but I'm the singular brain for the business operation.
Yep.
And now, if I hire a 4th employee, it's overwhelmed for me.
Yep.
So I think what some business owners do is, we task rabbit people, we make decisions, and we wait until they leave so we can actually start our own work, which is bizarre. So we double our days now by doing this kind of format.
Yep. Yeah, and that, it also, you have that buffer too, or at least for me, if I do that, somebody, the whole theory of the monkey, somebody puts the monkey on your plate. If they don't leave with it, you end up with just a zoo in your office.
Right.
So there's that, but even if you give the monkey back, get the zoo out of the office, there's always a buffer for me of like 30 to 40 minutes where I'm like, okay, what do I need to get back to? What are 5 pillars that I have to get done today? So love that. I'm going to real quick go through. You've got the 7 steps of Clockwork. You've got analyze your company's time. Subheadings under there, you've got the 4 Ds. But number 2, declare your company's queen bee role.
Yep.
Number 3, protect and serve the queen bee.
Yep.
Number 4 is capture systems. Number 5 is balance the team. 6 is know who you're serving. Number 7 is keep an eye on your business. So for our listeners, we're not going to be able to delve into every one of those topics. You're going to have to go get the book and listen to it or read it, because it will really, really change the game for you. If nothing else, I think they need to get the book because your description of the mentor. So the other day I was listening to it at 5 a.m. at the gym, and when you described your mentor, I literally was like mid-energy drink, blasted out laughing energy drink.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, it was hilarious. But anyway, sorry, don't want to go on a tangent.
That's awesome.
I think what I would like to hear for myself, and then so hopefully it adds value to the listeners, is again at the very beginning in chapter 1, this hit home for me. You said you kept working, and you were in this wheel that you couldn't get off of, and you worked harder and harder, and you're putting in the time, hoping that one day things will get better. I want you to start there, because I feel like that a lot. And currently I'm going home and I don't have problem pushing pause or stop, but the remnants of my day or what has happened to me and my overall demeanor with my family, it's just like sometimes my wife's talking to me and it's nothing. It's nothing. So I want you to start there, and I think a lot of our listeners can get value from that.
Oh, totally. I lived that life for so long, and I took it a level further. I considered myself a workaholic. I also considered that a badge of honor. Like, I was proud how hard I could work, which pointed to a lack of organizational efficiency. If I couldn't get stuff during the day, I'd say, well, I'll do it in the night. Or if it was all about how could I do more by getting more time, and I became less and less efficient myself, and my organization became less capable. I called it superhero syndrome. And I think a lot of businesses are in this, where the owner of the business makes all the decisions we talked about, but kind of swoops in when there's problems and fixes it and puts out, that client that is threatening to not pay bills or worse, we save the day. That employee who's going to walk out the door, we save the day. Whatever fire pops in our email box, we save the day. And this mentality, for many of us, me in particular, I felt stronger and stronger. Every time I saved the day, I kind of patted myself on the back, and my ego got bigger. But also it meant that I was constantly in this thought process. So when I would go home, while I was physically there, emotionally, mentally, I was not there. And my wife would call me out on it. She's like, I know you're sitting here, but you're not here. You're at work. And at a certain point, I can't remember now the exact point. I think it was when I was at the beach. Coincidentally, I'm going to the beach the day after tomorrow, exactly where this epiphany happened. It was, it's called Long Beach Island. In New Jersey, we call it.
You guys do, right?
Pardon me?
Family trip or something that you guys do?
Yeah, we do an annual family trip. We're going to the exact same spot. So people in New Jersey call the beach the shore for whatever reason, so we're going to the shore. And we're going down there. This is 10 years ago or whatever. My wife was so frustrated with my mind always being at work or trying to work on the laptop while doing a workcation, which I hate that term too. Whoever invented workcation, that person's a jerk. Like, workcation. God, it's a vacation or not?
Yeah,
so,
he was a tool for sure.
He's totally a tool. So my wife, she says, you're not here with us. Shame on you. Just go for a walk and I want you to think. And as I get up, I have my phone in my hand. She's like, no phone, just go. And I started walking, and it became this great observation. I'm walking down the beach, and I look up at these houses, and they're like mega mansions, multi-million-dollar houses. And I'm like, I want to be the guy who has one of those. How do I get that? And as I looked up at them, I noticed people on the decks and whatever, looking out the ocean. I'm like, that's what I want. But as I looked closer, they were on their laptops, sitting there, grinding, hustling away. And as I looked around the beach, you see people kind of precariously balancing their laptop on their knee so it doesn't get sand on it while the kids are running around. And I'm like, this mentality is overcoming us. That's where I realized I was not the one exclusively with this problem. We all have this problem, or many of us do. And I need to fix it. The counter story is I've gone to McDonald's. In my travels, I go to McDonald's regularly. And I asked one time, I asked the cashier, I said, hey, may I speak with the owner? I didn't have a problem or a complaint. I just was curious about how the McDonald's ran because they have such good systems. And the cashier looks at me and says, the owner's not here. And I subsequently have asked at dozens and dozens of McDonald's. I say, when I get there, I ask the cashier, hey, may I speak with the owner? Never once has the owner been there. I remember one cashier said, oh, the owner. Yeah, they came in a month ago to pick up some money. I remember that. That was it. And, they don't flip the fry. They don't cook the fries. They don't flip the burgers. And they're not in that glorified closet they call an office. That's the manager, the store manager. So an owner is someone that is a shareholder in a business and is free from doing the work. That my own challenges and this awareness and the promise that, some people can do this was the impetus for making Clockwork, writing Clockwork, so that any business, lawn care, it can run on its own. Any business can run on its own. If you envision that and if you commit to being an owner, not an operator.
And I get that. I think our listeners are sitting there thinking, yeah, Mike, that sounds great. You don't know where I've been, what I'm going
through. You don't get me. Yeah.
You don't get me. But I want you to, I don't know that you address it specifically in the book, but what about like owner's guilt? So, I started with a push mower in my mom's purple minivan.
Yep.
I have 8 team members. We're scaling, growing up and to the right. There's companies out there that are like that, and it's so ingrained in them to be the leader. You're the guy that gets there first, leaves last.
Yeah.
And when you don't, or you do take time to, heaven forbid, cast the vision or forecast or do something that an owner actually needs to be doing.
Yeah.
You have this self-inflicted guilt.
Sure.
Where does that come from? How do we deal with that? And where do we go from here, I guess, as small business owners?
Yeah. So
I have that all the time.
All the time, right? And I had that same feeling that if I wasn't around, my employees are thinking, wow, we're working our butts off and Mike's is taking money. And then I realized an owner and a leader are two separate things. Yeah. We don't have to be the leader who eats last and shows up first. That can be someone on our team that's the leader. An owner is someone that took risk by investing in a business. And many of us sweat our way in, but we started this business and built a structure that allows other people to be employed. In fact, the world economy is supported by us, entrepreneurs, small business owners. The vast majority of businesses are small business. We are supporting the world economy. So what we've done by taking on the risk of starting a business is extraordinary. The reward is for taking on that risk, because the vast majority of people will never do that. So first we have to change that mindset that we don't need to be the operating leader. We can have someone else do that. We need to be a shareholder. And I even argue to most people, don't even use the word entrepreneur anymore, even though that's my favorite word of all time, is entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is so linked to hustle, grind, lead by example. Could you imagine going to a party and saying, someone says, "What do you do?" Instead of saying, "I'm an entrepreneur, I own, run a lawn care business," say, "I'm a shareholder in a lawn care business." They'll look at you and go, "What? You are a shareholder." And what that means is you simply have an investment you've made. Kind of like if you own a house, that you rent out. That's an investment. You don't have to be at the house every 10 minutes and making sure everything's going on. You have that property, and then ultimately you get someone to maintain the property. The property pays for itself. So that's the objective, is we have to change our mindset from working in the business to being a shareholder of the business.
And it truly is a mindset shift, because it's painful, I think. Back to the point of you're Superman, you saved the day. You have to be confident enough in who you are to not worry about what the team's thinking, and not always want to save the day. You've got to give margin and delegate so that other people can step up.
It's funny, in my own business, as I've stepped out of the doing and I'm fully into the designing. That's why the highest level I call designing. Designing is where you have a vision of an outcome you want. This is the 4 Ds you mentioned.
4 Ds, yeah.
Yeah, so it's doing, deciding, delegating. The highest level is designing. Designing is where you have a specific outcome and you start organizing the resources to achieve that. Well, when I remove myself from operating the business, I met with my employees and I said, "Listen, I'm stepping out because I want this business to run its own, which is an opportunity for you. The people who want to step up into bigger roles, leadership roles, the opportunity will present itself." And our culture here is such that people are like, "This is the greatest opportunity." They're excited, as hurtful as it may sound. They're excited when I'm not here because they're running the business. There are some employees that say, "Oh, you're just taking money from me." Those shouldn't be your employees. Those are the people who don't get it and will never step up. Let them work for your competition. Those employees will keep that owner trapped within the business forever, and that business will continue to struggle. So I think when we start seeing it differently, when we see that this is an opportunity for our team, that if a business can run without us, look at the upside. It's an ATM for you. I mean, it's a regular, recurring, predictable thing. If you get sick or want to go on vacation or whatever happens, the business continues to generate income. That's a beautiful thing. But also the salability. I hope everyone listening in right now one day wants to sell their business. It's a great retirement package if you sell a business. And I have friends that are in the lawn care business, and one guy sold his business for millions of dollars because the business didn't depend on him. And someone that's looking to acquire a business doesn't say, "Hey, I want to buy that lawn maintenance business where the owner's working their tail off." Because the acquirer says, the day the owner is sick or not able to do it, I'm out of business. The buyers want to say, "I want that business that's running on automatic. The owner doesn't even show up. That means this is turnkey. I get it, and now I just turn the key, and it's humming along." And that's a high-value business, and you'll get a massive premium for operating a business like that. And if the business is dependent upon you, your premium may be zero. People may not want to buy that.
Because, there's no value or equity in something that continually feeds through one person. That person's fixing to be gone. So you're left with something that you have to run and manage. That's all really good. I think for our listeners, they're going to be sitting here saying, "I'm going to get to that point one day," or maybe I'm there and I need to take the leap. But I think what would be beneficial for them is maybe a practical, "Hey, is there at this size, I'm going to slowly phase out. At this number, is there any number, or are people just going to is it more of a feel thing? Is it more of a gray space?"
No, so it's funny. The next book I'm writing, I just submitted the manuscript 2 days ago. The next book is about pinpointing where you are in your business and what you need to do next. And the interesting thing I found in my research is it's not numbers based.
Yeah.
Traditional teachings say once you achieve 1 million, the business will be like this. Once you achieve 2 million, that 5 million, this, whatever, 100. Once you achieve that first 100,000, you can do this. Those numbers are very, very rough guiding kind of principles, but they're falling apart, particularly in today's types of businesses with internet business and stuff.
Yeah.
A one-man operation can do $100 million. Like it's
Yeah.
so those don't work. What I found is we have to achieve a degree of competency
Yeah.
at each level of business, and there's 5 distinct levels. The book, which is I think is available for pre-order, is called Fix This Next. And what it does is identify that every business has to first have a core competency in sales. You have to have sustainable sales coming in before you can elevate up to profit. You need to achieve permanent profitability, then elevate up to efficiency, the stuff we're talking about throughout the organization. And then there's this thing called impact, is where our business is no longer transactional but transformational. And the highest level is called legacy. There's and within each level, there's these little stages. That doesn't answer. I can't really pinpoint where people are right now based upon numbers, and that's a dangerous thing. But there are stages.
Sales, efficiency.
So, yes, first level is sales. You must have sustainable sales. Next level above that is profitability. You must have a predictable source of profit, retaining cash. That's what profit first teaches. The next level over that is, I call it order, which is efficiency. The business now has to be fully organized, and it's this third stage where the business owner takes them out. So if you have sustainable sales, you can do it by setting up recurring maintenance and so forth. Once it's sustainable, I don't care if you have a sustainable $100,000 a year or 100 million a year or somewhere in between. If you have some degree of predictability in sales, we then need to be able to extract adequate profit from it. Yep. Once we got those 2 nailed down, now it's removing yourself from the business, and then we move on to these other things where we can have greater impact. So that's kind of the stages we go through.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And this may not correlate, but it's kind of how my brain works. You talk about the sticky notes, and as a business owner, putting up, I think you said 6 to 8 sticky notes.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helped me too. I don't know if, I mean, you can speak to it. Tell me if I'm wrong or right. But you put up like sales, receivables, vision casting, repairs, whatever it may be for your company. And I was just kind of visualizing taking 1 or 2 of those things down. That's going to organically or naturally rather phase you out of some of those things. If you simply can't take a sticky note down because you're just one person, I mean, or even sometimes with 5 to 20 people, but
that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's to visualize our work. So if you put down all the work you're doing, put them on sticky notes, and then start doing exactly what you said, peel it away, and hand that sticky note to someone else and say, this is yours now. Give them the system or process to do it. It's permanently off your plate. And you can use sticky notes, this kind of deductive process, also to find the core competency of your business. So I have an exercise in there called the QBR, Queen Bee rule. It's the core doing activity, the core function of business that the business's survivability and therefore thrivability is hinging on. It's this thing that if you do it extremely well, your reputation is hinged on this. And if you don't do it well, people notice. So, maybe it's the quality of the lawn care, or maybe it's the speed or availability. So you can kind of define what it is, but many businesses think they need to be great at dozens of things. And that's actually a mistake. What we do is we put all those things you feel you need to be great at on sticky notes, and then we peel them back to the one thing that you're going to phone at. The other things, you have to be in the ballpark. Like, you can't just let things lag, but they just have to be good enough. We have to stand on one thing and be extraordinary there. That's the concept of the QBR.
And this is okay. So the idea is you've got one queen bee. That's your main job. Focus, protect her. So small businesses have to put in place, what is the one singular thing that we're going to do above all else?
Right. And just one little addition to that, it's not necessarily the queen bee, it's the queen bee role, meaning the queen bee lays eggs. The function of egg production is what matters most to beehives. That's where I derived it from. The queen bee is actually expendable. If she fails to produce eggs, they'll replace her with the new queen bee. So it's the egg production that's the most important function in that business. But for us, we've identified what's the most important function, and it doesn't need to be run by one person. Ultimately, there needs to be redundancy. Maybe you have your entire team taking care of this function, but you need to declare what you're hinging your success on.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, for time's sake, what is one of the takeaways that you want to leave our audience with? Before they read the book, you're like, hey, this is the one takeaway
I got the big one. Yeah.
Add the most value right now.
Yeah. So it's ballsy, but what I tell people to do is to commit to a 4-week vacation, 4 consecutive weeks. And I'm not saying tomorrow morning. I'm saying like within a year or 2 from today, book it, put in your calendar, commit to it, tell your family you're going on vacation, even if it's your mother-in-law's, I don't know. But the goal is for you to physically and digitally disconnect from your office. Here's what happens. And I've been doing this, we were talking off air about this. I've been taking my own 4-week vacations. The day you commit to it, it's the oh shit moment. It's like, oh my God, I'm not going to be around. My business can't survive without me. And if you're feeling that way, you have a business that is really in trouble because it can't survive without you. Then what starts happening is I'm like, well, how am I going to pull this off? And I start handing out and delegating work. And as I got closer and closer to my own 4-week vacation, I tested out systems and had my team doing it. Yeah. When I ultimately left for the 4-week vacation, the business survived. Now, it did have problems. When I returned, problems we had are the exact things that I next need to systematize for my next 4-week vacation. Yeah. And now we're at the point that my business really doesn't need me here. I'm able to do the design work and to do my passion, which is writing books. But otherwise, the business hums along. So I challenge people listening in, schedule a 4-week vacation. You're going to have that oh crap moment. And that is a call to action to change your thinking. Stop asking, how am I going to get this work done? And now start asking, who is going to get this work done? Because it's not going to be me anymore, the shareholder.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it speaks to the Parkinson's principle. I think that's
Parkinson's law. Yeah,
when you've got less amount of time, that's what you have. You're going to expend that resource, so you find systems and delegation to fill those needs. But you did have at the end of the book, you talked about I don't remember what you called it, but it was just like an owner hangover where you have this time where you're weaning yourself off of all the things that you were needed for, and it almost kind of hurt your feelings.
It did.
You interjected yourself into the system, and it kind of
backfired,
so to speak. Yeah.
I was in Australia when we aimed for my own 4-week vacation, and I suggest others do this too. You take short test vacations, if you will. I was away for 10 days to 2 weeks in Australia. And I remember I was down there for 3-4 days, and I look at my email and there's no email coming in, like nothing. And for a second, I'm like, oh, they don't need me. And then another second, I'm like, they don't need me? And then, then my ego starts getting hurt and bruised. I'm like, but why don't they need me? And so I started saying, hey, I have questions. I need reports. I started to interject myself in the business just to feel needed. And when I came back and did a debrief, I said, what went wrong? And I said, Mike, this is not easy for us to say, but what went wrong is you interject yourself in the business. You started to unwind the progress. We were so proud of what we were doing without you and couldn't wait to show you, but you started to try to fix things by making it worse. That was a big wake-up call for me. Yeah. And I realized I can't squish my ego. I have an ego. I think all of us do in some capacity, but we can channel it. Yeah. I don't. My ego was fed by being needed in the business. Now my ego is being fed by seeing myself as an empowerer of other people. Instead of calling myself a superhero now, I call myself a super visionary. I'm very clear on where I want my business to go, and I'm very clear that I have a team that can get us there. My job is to cheer them along and choreograph them to get there as efficiently as possible. With that new vision of myself, my big fat ego is still being fed, but I'm not harming the business.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. Before we started recording, we talked about a lot of your fans in our audience. So we did have one listener question. Comes from Rustin out of Kansas City. He wants to know what keeps entrepreneurs from successful and winning to quitting or just failing at the end. What in your opinion separates that entrepreneur who's going to win, fail, or give up in the world?
Yeah. So I think it's a great question that Rustin gave. I think there's 2 elements. First of all, it's the label we use. I think when we don't succeed at something, if we call ourselves a failure, that is a grave mistake.
Yeah.
Because now we've owned a label. I'm a failure. I think the right thing is to say I've failed. And that's significantly different. Things can fail. I fail at things all the time. And when I say I failed it, that means I can now release it and cut it off and say, oh, that's not working. When I say I'm just not there yet, I can keep stretching things on. And now I'm stuck in a pattern that's going nowhere.
Yeah.
So I regularly and as quickly as possible want to say, this failed. It did not work, but I'm not a failure. I'm going to try something new. So that's, I think, the first step.
Yeah.
I think the second step is the big difference is a successful entrepreneur defined by monetary success, growth of a business. That's how I'm defining it, is almost inevitably a business owner that narrows down the offering and narrows down the client base. They become niche specialists. And you can do this with lawn care. You can do it with any industry. The ones who struggle believe that doing more things for more people is the way to grow a business. And what happens is you continually expand your service offering, meaning you continually dilute your ability at being masterful at anything. You become a generalist. And the generalists always compete downward price pressure. They're always the only way to stand out is to be cheaper because they're not extraordinary at anything.
Yeah.
It's the businesses that continue to narrow and become so effective. They're like world-leading heart surgeons at whatever they do, that they build a world-famous reputation or community-famous reputation, and they dominate the space.
That's good. That's good. Laser focused on one thing.
Yeah.
Specializing. Yeah. And that, I think, for us, that's what we've done. And that's the easiest way to build brand too. It's hard to brand 50 different things, easy to brand one thing. And then as you were talking, just answering Russell's question as well, I think you're in the book, you talk about you say B-Bang, the big, audacious, noble goal.
Yeah.
I think if as a small business owner, you have one of those and you have a larger why outside yourself, success can be other things than monetary. And if you're pushing for something greater than yourself, often those times where you do feel like you've lost or you do want to give up, that's what pushes you towards a greater purpose. So I thought that chapter was huge as well.
Thank you. I think it was Jim Collins who wrote about the concept called the BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goal.
Yep.
And what I did was I wanted to put a little tweak to it, and I call it the Big Bang. It's the big, beautiful, audacious, noble goal. And I wanted to add beautiful, noble, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's what they say.
Yep.
And what I want my readers to understand is that you don't need to define your hairy audacious goal based upon other people. You don't have to define success as a comparative to someone else. Like if you don't have the next Amazon, you're a failure. No. Whatever you see as beautiful, whatever feels right is right. And I am so impressed by a hot dog stand that does $70,000 a year. I think that's a beautiful, and that serves the person. If that's their desire, I think that's absolutely beautiful. And then noble, I think we have a responsibility to be serving our world in a kind, good way. And I think we can all define what nobility is. In lawn care, it's very clear. Like your nobility could be that you're inviting people to the outdoors again. By beautifying an area, you're getting people away from televisions and the screen time, and you're getting them outside. That's freaking massively noble. And maybe there's other definitions you have.
Yeah.
But I think when we have that nobility, then our work becomes something greater than just a transaction. We're now being transformative.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Mike, I appreciate it. I want to
pleasure, brother.
I want to wrap up here and respect your time. I know we've been chatting for a while.
Yeah.
Tell our listeners where they can find the book Clockwork, where you'd like to guide them. Do a couple plugs here.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I definitely encourage people to check out Clockwork. I'm very proud of the book, and the popularity has really exploded. The best place to get is Amazon, because Amazon's the cheapest price. In fact, you probably get a used copy for like a penny. Like it's there's the values there. So go to Amazon and just type in Clockwork. If you want that. Free chapters. I am a podcaster, a blogger. I do video content regularly. You can go to my website, which is MikeMichalowicz.com, which I know is impossible to spell. So I have a shortcut. It's MikeMotorbike.com. That's my nickname. That was my nickname in high school. Here's the funny thing. I've never driven a motorcycle. I don't have a desire. Mike Motorbike. So
that
go
was
to Mike
in high school, because I've heard that come up on the podcast. That was literally your nickname in high school.
Yeah. They go Mike Motorbike. So is Mike Motorbike. So go to mikemotorbike.com. It goes to my website. And click on, you'll see a big button up there that says get the tools. It's all this free stuff waiting for you. Hopefully it'll help make entrepreneurship simpler for you.
Awesome. And you've rebranded the Profit First podcast to what now?
Entrepreneurship Elevated. The Profit First podcast, we were tackling so many different subjects that we decided we need to do something encompassing. So it's Entrepreneurship Elevated.
That's awesome. Mike, from myself and our audience, I really appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, brother.
Seriously, man, the book is awesome. Hope
Thank
our
you.
listeners go out and get it. And best to you and your family.
Likewise. Same to you. Take care.
Thanks. Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.